I'll never forget when you told me you had been shopping for technology in New Mexico.
Yes.
And found something that was extraordinary. Can you tell the origin story of Viome?
Of course. So fundamentally what we realized was, as Peter just said, your genes are not your destiny. So don't let someone fool you that you just have a bad luck and you got the bad genes, that's why something is happening. It turns out it's not your gene, it's your gene expression that you get to control. Well, more than that, 99% of the genes that actually are in our body don't come from our mom and dad. They come from these microbes. 100 trillion. Let me say that. 100 trillion. That's more than the debt of the United States. That slightly more than the people that even Peter has impacted, right? 100 trillion. And they literally control every part of our body. That realization, once we realize that we have to find a way to analyze the gene expression, which is your RNA, and not focus on what microbes are in our body, but focus on what they are actually doing. Because our body is a biochemical sensor. We need to know what these microbes are producing, because the same microbe can produce something good in one environment and something toxic in another environment. And that's the reason that two people can eat the same food and have a completely different impact, right? So with that understanding, we said, how do you do that? There was no company on earth that was actually doing the gene expression or RNA testing. So I went from university to university, from every lab, Lawrence Berkeley, Lawrence Livermore, really went to NASA JPL, NASA Houston, NASA Kennedy Space Center, and finally when I was at Los Alamos National Lab. How many of you know what Los Alamos National Lab is famous for? What is it famous for? Atomic bomb. The Manhattan Project was not done in Manhattan. Sorry, Manhattan guys. It was done in Los Alamos at New Mexico. These people really know the deep science. That is where we found the technology. They were working on a biodefense project. Peter, for 10 years, they spent multi-billion dollars. And when they say biodefense, I'm going to trust them that it's biodefense work, right? That project was understanding if there was a terrorism in our great country, how would we ever protect ourselves? And the only way we knew how to do that is to know what these microbes are producing and how they're going to impact the human gene expression. And I managed to actually get an exclusive perpetual license to the technology. It started Viome. And in fact, the chief science officer who built the technology works for us. And then guess what happens? You have to hire amazing AI. So I hired one of the few Turing fellows, the head of IBM Watson Research, who does all of our AI. And Peter, I want to thank you for teaching me everything that I know about it, right? Really taking this...
I want to give you an honorary medical degree for as much as you know. You're incredible.
I mean, honestly, what I really learned, Peter, was that there is no such thing as universal healthy food. We have analyzed, by the way, now over 500,000 people. Over 500,000 people, and I want to, in a focus group, Peter, I want to focus on science of aging. What causes us to age? And I'm going to go through each thing that we have learned about what causes us to age and how do we stop it. You hear people saying, everyone should take pomegranate juice, everyone should eat broccoli, everyone should do NAD. Guess what? Unless your name happens to be everyone, just don't do it, right? That is the trick, right? I'm going to tell you that hyper-personalization. So for example, broccoli can actually harm you if you have high sulfite production in your gut. Similarly, avocado can harm you if you have high uric acid production. Don't take vitamin B3 as well, by the way, if you have high uric acid. Curcumin can actually harm you. The turmeric, everyone thinks, all Indian guys, turmeric, healthy. No, it's really bad for you if you have high bile acid. Right. So we can go through one by one and saying, is NAD really good for you? Actually, it can harm you if you have high cellular senescence or high inflammation. Right? So when people say it's good or bad, it's really entirely up to each human being. And that's where the hyper-personalization comes into it. So it's not the food that's good or bad. Is it really good for you or bad for you right now? So even the food that's bad for you today, in 6 months to 9 months, as your microbiome changes, as your body changes, it may actually be okay for you. So it's not personalization once for a lifetime. It changes as your body changes, and you have to adapt to it.
One of the important things that you point out that is so true a lot of people used to do a microbiome analysis by looking at the DNA
Yep.
of the bugs in your gut. But that isn't valuable at all.
No.
It's not the DNA. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so that's very interesting is that, as Peter was saying, everyone knew, literally, by the way, don't take my word, go to Google, pick a disease you want, Parkinson's and microbiome, Alzheimer's and microbiome, cancer and microbiome, every single cancer is connected to microbiome. In fact, so much so, even cancer therapy, whether it works or does not work, chemotherapy or immunotherapy can be predicted by looking at your microbiome. So it's not what these microbiomes are. Well, it's called Akkermansia mucin. Doesn't matter. What matters is Akkermansia producing a short-chain fatty acid, or is Akkermansia producing toxin that's going to cause you MS? The same organism is known as a probiotic. Some people take as a probiotic. Exactly the same organism is the number 1 reason to get MS. The same thing you see in literally every food you eat. Just by looking at your saliva microbial activity, we can predict when you eat carrot or you eat almond, what is going to be a glycemic response. You don't need no CGM for it. We can predict based on your gut microbiome or your oral microbiome, when you eat banana, what is going to be glycemic response versus bread. And we know intuitively, Peter, some people can eat bread all day, don't get fat, and people like me can smell bread and get fat, right? Why is that? It is the glycemic response that changes for each one of us, right? And that can be predicted based on your oral microbial activity. So what we do, Peter, is to really analyze not just one thing. We start with saliva to understand what your oral microbiome are doing when you chew your food. Then we analyze your stool to understand what your gut microbiome is doing when the food goes down there. And then we look at your finger prick blood to know how the human gene expression is changing based on what metabolites the microbiome are producing. And then we can tell you what food you should eat and why, what food you should not eat and why, what supplement ingredients you need in what dosage, and we don't have any pre-made stuff. We literally have a compounding pharmacy. We say, this is for Peter, take 22 milligram of the elderberry, take 27 milligram of amylase, take 29 milligram of berberine, and we literally take every vitamin, mineral, herbs, digestive enzyme, peptides, anything you need. We make the powder, put them in a capsule every single month, and ship it to you.
So this is data-driven supplements and data-driven food.
Completely data-driven. What I think interesting is, what data are you feeding to the AI, Peter? That's the trick, is that it's not just the AI. What you feed to AI is what matters. So all I say is, come to my focus session, and let's talk about the science of aging, about what causes. And there are 5 things I want you to know about what causes you to age and what to do about it.
Beautiful. Give it up for Naveen Jain.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, buddy.